Hello everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Specter FM, a ghost story podcast where I tell you real ghost stories sent in by our listeners. I'm your host, Robert Welsh, and if you want to send us one of your ghost stories, you can send them to SpecterFMStories@gmail.com. That's SPECTREFM stories@gmail.com. Apologies for the brief break right at the beginning of the season, but let's just get straight into our stories today. Our first story is called My Strange Encounter. My story is not a ghost story, but one that was strange and frightening nonetheless. One night, my best friend and I were on the road, on the way home to her house. It was a warm evening in the summertime, and we were in her car with the windows down and her sunroof open. The night sky was overcast with illumination from the light pollution from the town nearby. At one point, I suddenly felt as if I were being watched. I looked over at my friend, and she was already glancing at me too. Right after she looked ahead, she exclaimed, "Do you see that?" As she pointed out the windshield, I moved my head forward to look up and saw something chilling. Above the car was a void of black, darker than the sky above. The edge of this object certainly was not of this world and our manufacturing capabilities. I looked out of a passenger side window and saw another edge that went far from the car. My friend saw the same thing outside the driver's side window. As I looked up, the blackness had a very faint reflection of trees, ground, and the road we were driving on. Once I realized there was a gigantic craft above us, I was rapidly overcome with fear. It finally dawned on me. I was underneath a massive UFO, or now called UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. It made hardly any sound, only a low hum that could be mistaken as tire friction on the road from our car. I couldn't look away. I couldn't comprehend what I was witnessing. What was this? What was going to happen? I felt our fate was up to whatever this craft wanted. There were no observable seams, nuts or bolts, only one giant sheet of this metallic material that covered the entire bottom side of this UFO. It was only 50 to 100 feet above us. This moment felt like it happened in slow motion. We were both stumbling on our words, both in awe and disbelief. Suddenly, the tips of each corner of these lime green lights faded on, and the center with a mysterious ball that lit up did as well. It accelerated at a speed unlike anything I have ever witnessed. In a single second, it accelerated and was out of our sight. No sonic boom nor sound followed this object flying away. I'm assuming both of us felt relieved, and we talked about it once we felt safe again. This occurrence really did change my perspective on the possibilities that lie on this earth we live in. I theorized that whatever this is, it doesn't abide by the laws of gravity. I believe these speeds are only achieved by the ability to alter space and time, and may be interdimensional. Unfortunately, I have no photos or video footage of this encounter, as I was too taken aback by seeing what I did. It never crossed my mind. I have attached photos based on other sightings and videos that others have gotten of this type of craft while researching it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to see people's comments if they have seen any UAPs as well. Thank you so much for that story, and I will post the pictures and you can comment over on Instagram, Specter_FM. I absolutely love a good UFO story. The stories you send me don't always have to be ghosts, but anything that creeped you out a little bit is still good. Now, the title of our next story just absolutely terrifies me. And this is called The Whispering Man in the Corner of My Room. Growing up, I had always felt a presence in my childhood home, specifically a corner of my room. As a child, I vaguely remember weird things happening. The closet door in that corner of my bedroom would always open and close on its own. In the middle of the night, I would wake up thinking I heard whispers or someone saying my name. Now I know when you're young, we have wild imaginations, and as I grew older, most of the activity stopped. However, even as a teenager, I still felt as if something or someone was always watching me from that corner. It never went away. But since all the activity has stopped, I figured it was just me remembering all the things I had made up as a child and freaking myself out. I eventually asked my parents to switch rooms with me, mainly because their bedroom was upstairs while mine was downstairs right next to the living room area, and I was a teenager who wanted my space and privacy. They agreed, and we swapped rooms shortly after. I had expressed to my parents many times about what I experienced as a child and what I continued to feel as I grew up, but they didn't think much of it and agreed it was likely just my imagination, seeing as they had never experienced anything in that room. Fast forward, a few months later, I woke up for school one morning and went into the kitchen to get some breakfast. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table with a blank stare. She looked exhausted. I asked her what was wrong and if she was feeling okay, to which she quietly replied, "I believe you." My mother went on to tell me that the prior night she had woken up at midnight to what she thought was someone saying her name. Once her eyes had adjusted, she saw who she believed to be my father standing in the corner of a room, motionless. She asked him what he was doing, but had no reply. My mother then turned away to check the time, and the alarm clock read 1:30 a.m. My father worked midnights at the time, and would quietly get out of bed and leave for work around 11 p.m. each night. Realizing that there was no way what my mother saw could be my father, she quickly turned on the light in a panic, assuming someone had broken in, only to find that there was no one there. After that night, none of us ever experienced anything again. I'm not really sure why whatever it was chose to show itself to my mother that night. Maybe because she was skeptical and it wanted to make its presence known. All I do know is that I'm very happy to be out of that house after 25 years of being watched by the whispering man in the corner of my room. I feel like we've all had that experience where you hear someone whispering your name at night, and sometimes it can be your bedsheet moving while you're half asleep, and it sounds, like a noise you're trying to make sense of, so you just immediately think of your name. But what if it is something more sinister than just your bedsheet moving? That's a terrifying thought. So next up, we have an audio story, and this is called I Wish to See Ghosts, and I Paid the Price.
My name is Erin, and this is a dream that I had when I was 13. So it goes as my aunt owns a house at a riverside, and I could envision the whole house. So we were at the edge of the lake, and I was watching my sister on the water. She was skiing, and I looked to my right, and I saw my Archangel Michael. And then I look away to look at the water again, and then I got this very menacing feeling, hatred, disgust, and danger. And I looked again, and half of his face was completely gone, and it was just blood and brain stuff, and ugh. It was just really terrifying to look at. It was like a true horror scene. And then as soon as I saw that, I woke up and I felt a presence in my room, and I felt something was on my chest, and just this most hateful, menacing stare, like, how dare you even breathe the same air as me? Just pure evil. And as I talk about it now, I'm getting goosebumps, but yeah, it was pretty terrifying. And I started praying because I couldn't move, even though my eyes were open and I could look around the room. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and then eventually the feeling went away, and I ran to my parents' room, telling them all about this and begging them to come back to my room. And then since then, I've always had holy water and rosemary beads by my side, just in case that dream would ever come true again.
Thank you so much for that audio story. You can also send me your voice recordings. I greatly appreciate those. I mean, be careful what you wish for, right? Sometimes we hear ghost stories and supernatural experiences, and they can be quite exciting. But when you're actually experiencing them yourself, it probably isn't the best thing, Okay, our next story today is called My Dancing Bed. I have had several weird experiences that could only have been paranormal, but the weirdest one, for which I couldn't think of an explanation if my life depended on it, is the one I'm about to tell you now. About 10 years ago, I lived with my mum in a small apartment in a town in southern Germany. In Germany, most people don't exactly believe in the paranormal, and I myself was a total skeptic until this happened. One night, when I was alone in my room, sleeping in my bed, I suddenly woke up with a racing heartbeat. I still remember coming to my senses, feeling weird and dizzy and my heart beating like crazy. After a few seconds of still being a bit sleepy in the head, I was fully awake, realizing why I woke up. My whole bed was shaking. I immediately sat up and turned on the light on my nightstand, with the bed still shaking in a weirdly evenly manner. I had one of those old school iron beds, which was probably less stable than a wooden bed, but still, there was no reason for it to shake like this. I immediately checked the room to see if somebody was there, or if this might be an earthquake, but I was alone, and the rest of my room stood completely still. The bed was shaking on its own, forwards and backwards, like it was dancing. I remember touching the wall next to the bed to confirm the movement. I was spooked and confused, and tried to check that I was indeed awake by pinching myself and touching my hands. I didn't know what I should do as I was sitting on this shaking bed when the shaking slowly faded and then completely stopped. Confused, I also checked under the bed to look for external forces, like a broken pipe or something that could have moved the bed, but I found nothing. Then I grabbed my phone to look at the time and searched Google for earthquakes in my area. Also nothing. I thought that maybe they didn't record the earthquake yet, as it was about 2 a.m, and decided to check again the next day, With that, I actually turned off the lights and went to bed, as if nothing happened. Retrospectively, I don't know how I did that, because now I'd probably run and never come back. The next morning, I told my mum about this, and she insisted that it was just a dream. I remembered my Google search from the night before and checked my phone. The search from last night was still in my browser, meaning that I was definitely awake. I also saw that no earthquakes had been registered on that night in that area. I also checked again, under and next to the bed, and found nothing suspicious. When I told my mum about this, she seemed a little bit more concerned, but eventually we both just accepted it happened and moved on. To this day though, I still don't have an explanation to what caused this and how this could have happened. Over the years, I happened to have other weird sleep paralysis or sleepwalking experiences, but nothing ever came close to my dancing bed. Was it a demon? Was it a super small earthquake directly under the house? Or was a ghost just trying to prank me? Thank you for reading my story. I hope you liked it, and I hope it spooked you as it spooked me. Thank you so much for your story. A dancing bed does scare me a little bit, but I think I'll be more stressed out and frustrated that I was woken up and it was my actual bed doing the waking up. The thing that I'm meant to be sleeping on peacefully, you know, not some guy whispering to me in the corner of my room. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much again for joining me. Remember, you can send your stories to SpecterFMStories@gmail.com. Follow us over on Instagram at Specter_FM, and we'll see you next time. Bye.